This conference will now be recorded.
So in the last class we discussed about different topics, how we can Dockerize the projects, and we did that. We Dockerized the projects, and what are the other things we did? We talked about building the Docker images and then the Docker file, and how do you share these Docker images with other people in your team, right? You can push the Docker images into Docker Hub and make this image available for all the collaborators, the people within your team, or sometimes it would be different tools and technologies inside your company that directly want to pull from hub.docker.com. So anyone who want to get these images, they can get the Docker images just by pulling it, right? All right, so today what we are going to discuss, today we are going to start with Jenkins. That is our next topic, the new topic, the last topic in our course. And we will have an introduction to Jenkins. I will talk about what is Jenkins and what we are going to use Jenkins for, right? Our main intention is that we want to automate this entire process. As soon as a developer made a code change, then automatically everything should happen: the compiling, building, executable file creation, Docker file creation, then pushing the Docker images into the registry, then running these Docker images as containers, right? All these things need to happen in a automated way, and that is our intention. And Jenkins is probably, you can say, the heart of the CI/CD process. It is Jenkins. Okay, give me 1 second. Sorry, uh, just 1 second. All right, so we will talk about, a basic introduction to Jenkins and what we are going to do using Jenkins. And after that, we will, go ahead and install Jenkins on our AWS machine. Jenkins is a software that can be installed on Linux. So we will do that. It's a free software. And then we will create our first job. We will, take the same project what we have been working on. We will create one job that consists of all these steps: taking the code from GitHub and then compiling it, building it, creating executable, creating Docker images, pushing the Docker images into hub.docker.com, then installing this software in containers, I mean, running the containers. So everything we will do in one step, and all those things we will do by creating a job in Jenkins. And then we will talk about Jenkins plugins, right? Basically, how do you add new features into Jenkins? How do you remove unnecessary features from Jenkins, right? All those things we will discuss at this stage. And then how you will execute the job in Jenkins. So you want things to happen automatically. A developer pushed the code in GitHub, then everything should begin automatically without an engineer triggering it, right? This Docker file creation, Docker push, or the deployment, it should happen in a more automated way. So we will talk about how the Jenkins jobs are triggered, and then we will have a detailed explanation about what is continuous integration and also the continuous delivery. And then automatically how GitHub can trigger Jenkins job. We will talk about GitHub, and then we will talk about how it can trigger Jenkins job, right? So These are the topics we are going to discuss today. All right, so let us start. So first, I will talk about Jenkins and our plans, what we are going to do using Jenkins, and a brief introduction to Jenkins. Sorry. Right. So let us start. So Jenkins is commonly used for continuous integration and continuous delivery. So Jenkins is basically it's a multi-purpose tool. Jenkins allows you to create certain jobs in there. I mean, you can say jobs is nothing but a number of things you put together and you call it a job or something like this. So you inside the Jenkins, you are going to create a job. This is a job that you are creating. So inside the job, you can specify what are the things that you want to do. I want to take the code from GitHub, right? Git is, the place where code is stored. Then I want to take, I want the packages.json or the dependency file, and I want to build it. Build the code into an executable file, then create Docker images. And after creating Docker images, push Docker images, and then run some testing. And maybe pull images and deploy your surveys. And after that, do some testing and generate some reports. Verify the reports, and if there is a problem, send out an email to the developers. And also, you can just do some archiving of the artifacts, and all those things can be done. So you just mention what are the things that you want your Jenkins to do in one single job. This is one job I am talking about. Similarly, you can create any number of jobs inside Jenkins. So a job contains a number of instructions that Jenkins will execute whenever the job is triggered or whenever the job is executed. And yes, the job can be executed multiple times. For example, your developer made one code change. Tom has added a new feature inside your software, and he updated Git with his new commits. Then what you want to do is you want this entire procedure to be executed, and you want to take the code, validate the code, verify it. If there is a problem, send out an email to developer. You want to do it in an automated way. So all you do is you will run this job, right? You will run this job, and similarly you will create different jobs in Jenkins. Sorry, you will create different jobs in Jenkins. So another job for creating the server in AWS, it's up to you, right? It's up to you what kind of jobs that you want to create. Probably you want to create an AWS server and run your software inside the AWS server, and then provide a URL for testing your software. So like that, whatever you want to do, right? You create jobs in Jenkins. So like that, you would create many jobs in Jenkins. Generally, these jobs will automate the manual work that you do in your company. It can be continuous integration like this. This is an example job for continuous integration. It will take the code from Git and it will do everything whatever needed for continuous integration. This is job is for provisioning the service in AWS and running your software. This job is for checking your monitoring system and making sure that all the surveys are monitored using the monitoring system. And another job is for watching something else and doing some execution, creating a new Kubernetes cluster or deploying a new application into Kubernetes cluster. Probably only for building you created another job in Jenkins. So whatever manual work that you do in your company, you can create them as a job in Jenkins, and whenever you want to do it, you just run the job in Jenkins. So you avoid a lot of human hours by doing this. Let Jenkins run everything inside a server rather than you doing them manually, right? That is the basic principle. So is Jenkins used only for CI/CD? No. Jenkins is a very good tool that can be used for CI/CD, but it can be used for any kind of purpose. You can, whatever repeated job that you do in your company, you will create a job by defining the steps, and whenever you want to do that job, you just run this particular job in Jenkins. It will, you can, so you can run it multiple times. CI process need to happen every time the developer make a code modification. Tom made one code modification, this entire job need to be executed. Tom again made some code change, he added some new feature, he fixed the problem, again this job need to be executed. So probably in a company every day, the same job of CI, continuous integration, I am taking this job as the example, job will be executed probably 3, 4, 5 times per day, or maybe 50 times per day, without anyone to bother about it, right? Your developer don't really need to spend any of their time. Your developer would do the coding, update their changes into Git, and Jenkins will do the rest. Automatically, Git will trigger this job which you have written in Jenkins, and whatever that needs to be done on this code, Jenkins will do it. So Jenkins is more like, I mean, CI is just an example I had given you. The job can be anything. It is all about you, how you are going to configure this, right? Otherwise, whatever kind of job it is, or whatever work that you do in your company, you can create a job in Jenkins and let Jenkins run it. So that is the whole purpose of Jenkins, to give you an overview. All right, great. So what we will do is, we will go ahead and install Jenkins. Okay, so let us go ahead and install Jenkins on an AWS machine. So I won't use Tom's laptop, rather I would create a new machine, and inside the new machine I will install Jenkins. So let us take a look. And my AWS machine, I need Tom's computer also to do some kind of code modification and updating the Git. And I will create one separate machine in AWS to run Jenkins. So let me do that. All right, so I'm going to create one new machine, and at the same time I want Tom's laptop also to work. So I will start Tom's laptop, and then I will create a new machine as well. So Tom's laptop is started. Now I am creating a new machine. T2 micro should work, so no need. Okay, I'm going to create a T2 medium machine. The reason why I am creating T2 medium is T2 micro will have problem with npm. When you run the npm install command and npm run build command, they expect they need more memory, and T2 micro machine don't have enough memory. So I'm going to create a T2 micro machine, but remember, T2 micro machine is the only machine that is free. If you are using T2 medium, use it and then stop it whenever you are not using it, because it is chargeable. It's cheap but chargeable. I think it would cost you something like a 0.02 or $0.03 per hour, something like 20 rupees or less per hour. So use it for 1 hour and stop it, or 1 hour or 2 hour, whatever. Stop it after your use. Don't forget that. So I'm going to use T2 medium because npm is very slow on T2 micro. That's why. So click on review and launch, and then click on launch button again. So this machine I am creating for Jenkins. If you want to run Jenkins alone, T2 micro is sufficient, but my plan is Jenkins will be running all the build, npm build, maven build, whatever, and npm build need more CPU and memory. That is why I created the T2 medium machine. Right, so this is Tom's laptop, and this is my Jenkins. This is the machine where I am planning to install and configure Jenkins.
Basil, you are creating a new machine, correct?
I am creating a new machine. Yes, that is where I will set up Jenkins. Yeah,
Okay. So we also need to go with the T2 medium when we'll follow the same.
that's right. Because npm won't work in T2 medium.
Okay.
I mean, won't work in T2 micro. That's why. Okay. So I'm going to log into the new AWS machine that I created. My plan is to install Jenkins in there. All right, so first you will run the apt-get update command, and instead of blindly running apt-get install, I would rather look into the Jenkins documentation, how to install Jenkins in Ubuntu. Search in Google, you would be taken to the Jenkins website that would contains the instructions to install Jenkins on Ubuntu. Yeah, this is it. Just run this four commands one by one. This is the repository that contains Jenkins, and then you are installing Jenkins. So just run the commands one by one. Right, so the three commands, wget, then adding the repository, apt-get update, and then apt-get install Jenkins. So it will install Jenkins. And I believe Java must be installed. Yeah, I was actually expecting this error, right? Java is currently not installed. Java must be installed. So that is why you are getting this error. Jenkins is written in Java. So I just want to find out how to install Java in Ubuntu. You can simply search in Google. JDK Java Development Kit. This is what you want to install. So I want to know what is the Ubuntu package. If you want to install Java and all, you can directly follow the apt-get. So that's what I'm doing. I will run this command apt-get install, then open JDK, and what happens? Oh, this is not the right package name for Ubuntu 20.4, it seems. I believe this is what you need. Open JDK, 11 JDK. Let's see. I'm going to install this. Open JDK 11-JDK, that is the package name I'm going to use. Yeah, that is working, and now JDK is getting installed. JDK means Java Development Kit. So that would contain all Java binaries and libraries that you ever need, right? So we install Jenkins, but Jenkins will not work without Java. So that is why we are installing Java. Okay, yeah, now let me run this command apt-get install Jenkins once again. Hopefully this time it won't throw you any error. Yeah, it is done. So Jenkins is now successfully installed, and you can execute this command to start Jenkins, service Jenkins start. So Jenkins come along with a graphical interface. You don't have to do things from the command line. It has a very powerful graphical interface, a website. You can browse Jenkins on a browser and you can do things. You can create jobs, you can write the steps inside the job, delete a job, execute a job. All these things, what all the execution that happened before, everything is visible inside a web interface. So Jenkins come along with a very powerful web interface. So let us go ahead and take a look at that web interface, right? And it is on port 8080. So what you need to do is you need to browse for the public IP on the port 8080. This is the public IP of your AWS machine where Jenkins is installed, and Jenkins listen on the port 8080 for the graphical interface. So you can browse for this URL. First of all, the port must be open in Jenkins in the AWS. So that's what I'm doing. AWS don't allow port 8080 by default. So I'm going to do that. Here I mentioned the port number 8080 and select everywhere. So now it is open for everyone. Okay, great. So now anyone in the world can browse this URL, right? Connect to my AWS machine on port 8080. Then they will see a graphical website asking them to, do something initially. Uh, in order to unlock Jenkins installation is not completely finished. This is a configuration page for Jenkins. It will ask you some information, provide the password by copy pasting the password from this file. After that, it will ask you to install some basic plugins. It will ask you to create a username, right? Some initial configuration need to be done. The first step is take the content of this particular file and paste it here. If you go to your AWS machine and open this file in a nano editor or using a cat command, you will find a password. So whatever I found, I am pasting it here, and then click on continue button. And in the next step, it will ask you, initially, do you want to install some plugins in Jenkins? Jenkins initially, it cannot pull from GitHub. It cannot build using Maven. It cannot build using NPM. So in order to do all that, there should be some plugins installed in Jenkins. So initially, Jenkins may not have the capability to pull the code from Git. To do that, Jenkins must have a plugin installed for Git. Jenkins want to pull the code from another source SCM like Git, for example, CVS or Subversion perforce. So initially Jenkins won't be able to do that. So you will install a perforce plugin. Now Jenkins can pull code from perforce. You install CVS plugin. Now Jenkins can pull the code from CVS. So that is the way how it works. Jenkins don't come along with all the features, but Jenkins come along with an ample amount of plugins that would satisfy all your needs, right? So generally what I do is I go with the first option, install suggested plugin, but you can do that later also. It is fine, or you can select which plugin you want to install by clicking this option. But I'm going with the first option because most of the plugins, suggested plugins, are very useful for us also. That's why. So click this button, and then it will start installing some plugins on Jenkins. So we just wait until the initial plugins are installed and configured. You can see Git plugin is there, pipeline plugin, all these plugin we are going to use, right? SSH and agents, different plugins are available, and they are all useful plugins. So, and then it will ask you to create a username and password. So anybody who browse this URL, first they will be asked for a username and password, an admin username and password. So I'm going to create an admin user called Basil with some password. And it is asking for my full name, so I provide my name and email ID, and that's it. Now you click on save and continue. Then it would show you the URL. You already know the URL for Jenkins. That is exactly what you are browsing. So this is the URL you will always browse every time you want to see the Jenkins dashboard. Then it will ask you for the username and password. So that's all, click on start using Jenkins button, and that's it. Now this is the dashboard for Jenkins. You have just installed and configured Jenkins, and you are taken to the Jenkins dashboard. Anytime you want to log out, you can log out. You would be taken to a login form. You need to enter your admin username and password, whatever password that you created, and to sign in. So every time you want to log into Jenkins, you can browse this URL and enter your username. Sorry, username is Basil, not admin. Then enter the password, whatever password that you selected. Then click on sign in button, and you are logged into the Jenkins dashboard. So that is how you install and configure Jenkins. So any questions? I think it's pretty straightforward, right? So what I will do is I will quickly show you, different options available in Jenkins. What are different things that you can do inside Jenkins, and all those things. So, so in the dashboard, take a look at the dashboard. And I told you Jenkins allows you to create jobs. So you can create a job which contains a number of steps or a number of instructions, and job, whenever you run the job, all the instructions get executed one by one, and it will result in probably it will create some report, it will create some artifact, it would create some Docker image, whatever, it will do something, right? Whatever you have written specific instructions to do something, and this will happen every time the job got executed. And I told you, in a company the same job will be executed multiple times, right? For example, the continuous integration job, every time developer make a code modification, you want to run the entire CI process, compiling, building Docker images creation, pushing them, running the software in containers, generating the reports, sending out email to the developer if there is any problem, right? All these things need to happen in a automated way. So this is where you can create a new job by clicking new item on the left side. You can create a new job. So I'm going to create a new job. Let's say test job, something like that, right? And select this option freestyle job, and then inside you can write some instructions. So whatever you want, you can write an instructions to download the code from GitHub, and then another instructions to build the code using Maven. It's all up to you. You can do whatever you want. So right now I'm just putting some statement. Example job execution is success. I'm just putting some echo statement. This is nothing but a Linux command I am putting here. I am asking Jenkins to execute this command, and when this command execute, it would print this message. So I just want to see. So click on save button, and now you have created a job in Jenkins with only one instruction, a echo statement, print something, as simple as that. So, and now if you go back to Jenkins dashboard, you can actually see all the jobs that you created. The test job is something that we created just now. And if you want to modify the job, it will allow you to modify the job whenever you want. You click here and the job will open. And if you click on the configure button on the left side, then you can make modification to the job. It will again take you to the job editing page. If you want to put another command, you can put that, or if you want to remove the existing command, you can do that, right? That's what it's all about. And then if you want to run the job, I told you job is created once and executed multiple times. So in my case, I created the job, it is never executed before, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to execute it. There's a command, there is something called build now. After you open the job, on the left side there's a build now button. If you click on this button, then it will execute the job. What does that mean? It will execute all the instructions whatever you have written inside the job. So in our case, we have written one echo statement to print some message, right? So it executed once, the job got executed once. You want to execute the job again, you click on build now button once again, the job will execute once again. So multiple times the same job can be executed, and every time you execute a job, it will execute those instructions whatever you have written. So let us take a look. On the left side we have executed the job 2 times, and 2 builds got created, or you can say 2 executions you can find over here under the build history. And you can click here to open it. You can click on the build number to open it. So this is the execution. The job got executed. The first execution, or build number 1. And it will show you a short summary. Who executed it? It is myself, the admin. I clicked on the build now button to manually execute it. And then if you want to add some description, add some comment, you can add some comment. And if you want to see the console output, the complete output or complete logs coming from the Jenkins while executing this job, you can find it here under console output. So click on console output on the left side. Then you can see, initially Basil had started this job execution, and it is, it is running this. This is the job that it is building. And this is the statement that is available written inside the job, the instructions, the only one echo command, and it executed that command, and then the message got printed. And all the jobs are, all these instructions, in our case there is only one instructions inside the job, it got executed, and then if it is success, then the job would become success. The job becomes success when all the instructions are successfully executed. In our case, there's only one instruction. If there were more, it will run all instructions one by one. And if all the commands succeeded without any error, then at the end, it would say job is finished as success. If there was any error, let me purposefully make some error. I am going to edit this job and I am going to make some error. So right now we open the first execution. If you open the second execution also, in our case, it will do the same thing. It did the same thing. So the test job was executed 2 times now. So before I execute it for the third time, let me purposefully make some mistakes, right? So that you can see the error. So what I will do is I will configure it. Currently, there's only one instructions, echo a symbol sample job execution. I am adding one more instruction, some. This time I am making a spelling mistake. So I'm just trying to print one more message using the echo statement, but you can see I put H 2 times, so purposefully I am making a error. This command does not exist, so it would throw error. So click on save button, and now now you modified the job, and the job was executed 2 times. At the third time, I'm going to execute it. Click on build now button. Then it will execute the instructions one by one. In our case, there are 2 echo statements. First echo statement will succeed. Second echo statement will fail because there is a typo. So if you take a look at the third job, third execution, and take a look at the console output by clicking the left side, you can see it is showing all the logs. This till here it is saying, and then the next thing is this command which failed because the command not found. Then the job is marked as a failure. If any one of the instruction, any one of the step failed, then the job will be marked as a failure. Job will be success only if all the instructions succeed. Got it? So let me modify the test job once again, and I let me correct the typo. Now you try to execute it. Click on build now. Then it would create the fourth build. It created the fourth build, which is success. Green means success, right? This color is success. Red means failure. Click on console output. This time, both echo commands had succeeded, and then the job is marked as success. So a Jenkins job, every time it gets executed, it would result in a failure if any of the instruction failed. It will be success if all the instructions are succeeded. So this is how you create a job and execute a job in Jenkins. Some simple steps, right? And yeah, it will get more advanced, but for your information. And then if you browse on the right side top, you can see your profile name, your name, Basil Varghese. And then if you click on the builds, you can see all the builds that you executed. So in our case, for the test job, we created a total 4 builds. We repeated the execution 4 times, so it created 4 builds. So you can see, what is the all builds for Basil, my login. You can create more users also, and they can also see the same thing. And there is a configure button. If you want to do some kind of customization, you can do it. Change your time zone, generate some API tokens are similar to password that can be used for some different purpose, different automation. From the browser, you can log into Jenkins and do everything by clicking buttons. And there are some other ways you can log into Jenkins, right, using API token, and we will talk about that later. Some command line access, you can configure the credentials. Credentials are nothing but every time Jenkins want to connect to a third party. For example, I asked Jenkins to download the code from GitHub. From Git, Jenkins need to download the code. So Jenkins should create a private public key pair. Public key should be there in Git. Jenkins must use the private key to pull the code from Git, right? Credential. So Jenkins to log to pull code from Git, Jenkins should have the private key. So you can add such kind of credentials. In this case, the private key. You can add private key as a credential in Jenkins. And later, every time Jenkins pull from Git, you can tell Jenkins that use these credentials, use this private key. Or similarly, Jenkins want to connect to some Apache and copy the files into www.html folder. Jenkins created the website, the npm build, for example. Jenkins created the website, and now Jenkins want to copy this website files into the document root of Apache, www.html. So Jenkins want to connect to the server and then copy the files to the www.html folder. So the server will ask Jenkins for some credential. So whenever Jenkins want to connect to a third-party system, it can be Git, or it can be an AWS machine, or it can be some service providers. Jenkins may want to use some private key, or Jenkins may want to use some username or password, different credentials Jenkins want to use to log into the third-party systems. So you can store these credentials securely inside Jenkins. The private key can be saved, encrypted inside the Jenkins as a credential. Username and password to log into some system can be stored in Jenkins as encrypted as credentials. So like that, you can create different types of credentials. And then later we can use those credentials for Jenkins to connect to various other systems. So that's what credentials means. We will see that, right? We will talk about credentials. You want to change your email ID, you can change it. These are different options. And yeah, from here you can create a new credential. I told you, right? You can create a new credentials if you want. This is the page you will create it from. It can be user credentials, or it can be the parent Jenkins credentials. So you can do that by clicking this button, add new credentials. You can create a username or password. It can be an SSH key, or it can be a secret file, or it can be different types of credentials that Jenkins support. And then now you go back to the dashboard. On the left side, you can click on people. You can see all the uses available on the system. You can create new uses in Jenkins. And build history, you already know, it would show you all the builds that got executed before. Then manage Jenkins, if you click here, you would be able to see different configuration options for Jenkins. Then my view, how exactly you want your dashboard to look like when you log into Jenkins, how you want the Jenkins dashboard to look like. So that is what you configure under views. And like that, there are different options. And you can log out by clicking this button, and then you get logged out. Then if you want to log in again, you should provide the username and password. And take a look at the manage Jenkins page. There are different options. I talked about Jenkins plugins. If you want to install or uninstall a plugin, this is where you will do it. And you want to configure some tools inside Jenkins. Maven has to be configured inside Jenkins. If Jenkins want to use Maven, npm must be configured as a tool if Jenkins want to use npm. So like that, different tools you want to configure, you can configure them here. And then we can manage credentials, you can manage usage. If you want to create a additional user, you can do it. You can delete a user. All these things, users are nothing but the people, somebody else from your team, they want to log into Jenkins. So you can create a user with their name. They will get a separate username and password, and they can log in with their username and password. I logged in with username Basil. They can log in with their username. So like that, you can create more uses from this page. You can see the logs from here, some different options, and we will come here one by one. So just wanted to give you an overview how exactly the Jenkins dashboard look like. So now we will go ahead and create a new job. After a break, you can take a short break. After 5 minutes, we will 5 minutes break. We will go ahead and create a job in Jenkins. So, any questions?
Basil, how do you differentiate the functionality of Jenkins versus what we did in Ansible using tasks?
Uh, yeah, Ansible is a config management tool. It is basically the only purpose of Ansible is to make sure that the configurations are correct, right? For a given service or a set of server, the configurations are correct. That's what Ansible makes sure. In Jenkins, let's say you want to pull the code from Git. There is a plugin. All you need to do is provide the Git URL, then the private key using which Jenkins can pull the code. And now Jenkins is capable to pull the code from Git. Jenkins is capable to deploy the code into a Linux machine if it has the private key and login access. So Jenkins has a wide variety of plugins available, and it has a powerful graphics, and most of the daily job that you do, you can automate it using Jenkins, right? Jenkins is not a config management tool. Jenkins is rather a tool where you can write down your repetitive jobs, right? I want to, for example, I want my development team to create a server themselves whenever they want, right? My development team, they are working on some project, and sometimes they need a new server to do something. So every time developers come to me asking me to create the server for their testing purpose or for their development purpose. So instead, what I did is I created a job in Jenkins, and the job, when it gets executed, it will connect to AWS and it will create a machine. Then I created a username for that developer. I told the developer that every time you want to create a new server, just log in and run this job. So developer don't need to worry about AWS. They don't need to worry about cloud, then how to create a machine in AWS, then how to specify different settings for the application. I have predefined everything within the job. All developer has to do is log in and click a button, and the server got created, and he got the IP address of the server. Or you are getting my point, right? So in that way, anything. And my QA team, they want to run some kind of testing. They want to run the testing every day at 12 noon, every day at noon. They want to run some testing, and it will take 1 hour or 2 hours for them to run all the testing. So I told them that don't run it manually, just give me all the test script that you need to run. I will create a job in Jenkins, and Jenkins will run those scripts exactly at noon, at 12 o'clock every day. I can make some schedule, daily at this time, run all the script. It would run the script, it would generate the test report. If there is an error, my testing team would get an email from Jenkins that there is an error. So it is, Jenkins is more like your daily routines jobs, or your daily routine work you want to automate. You want some automated system to do the work for you, right? That is what Jenkins do exactly. Anyone else? Any questions?
Like Basil, can we, create a use groups in Jenkins and provide permissions for the users?
It is possible. You can create different groups give permission to groups. Yeah,
Okay.
possible.
Basil, is there any chance where still the radio button is showing green? Everything is working fine, but still we are facing some error and we are not able to find it. Some hidden error or whatever will be the error, it will clearly shows in the logs.
You should make sure that, yeah, if there is something wrong, it should be detected through one of your steps and the step fails. So generally no chances, but sometimes you may need to do some extra step to make sure that it is showing green, red, and it's not false alarms.
Okay.
Generally, it never happens. It's kind of what Jenkins generally do is it will monitor each and every command that you are running. If any command failed, Jenkins would know, because uh, for every program there is proper mechanism to indicate a failure and indicate a success. All the Linux command follow the same format. You run the ls command, then after executing the ls command, your Linux system know, or the ls command will exit with some error code every time it gets executed. So whatever programs that you write, your developers write, or whatever programs that you use inside Linux, or they all have a mechanism to convey the failure or success. So generally, it never happens unless your program has a flaw. Right?
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So take a short break of 5 minutes. Let's continue after 5 minutes.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So so let us go ahead and create our job, our first job in Jenkins. Yeah. I mean, we already created our first job, so technically it is the second job. Right. So right now my intention is that Tom is a developer. He work on the retail project or whatever project he is, and Tom make the code changes. He add new features. You know how Git works, right? In Git, he will be working on a separate branch, and he will merge the branch with the development branch, or maybe he will directly make a commits whenever he is fixing something. He will directly commit into the development branch. So all the developer initially they work on the development branch, right? So all the work will come into the development branch. So let us start with now start with Tom's computer, and assume Tom and all other developer of the project they work in the development branch. They will be creating feature branches and merging with development, or they will be directly committing to development, and at the end it is the development branch that would be getting all the updates from all the developers. So my intention now is every time there is a new update in the development branch in Git, I want Jenkins to pick the latest code from the development branch, build it, create Docker images, and push the Docker images into hub.docker.com. I want all these things to happen in a completely automated way. So let's take a look how that can be done. And instead of at the same time, let me give you a brief introduction about GitHub. I may have mentioned the term GitHub multiple times before, but we really did not discuss that in detail. So let me give you an overview about what is GitHub. So what we have been doing, Tom and Jerry, Tom have his laptop and Jerry has his laptop. They both work on their laptop and they both have a local repository in their laptops. And in order to synchronize that, there is a there is a machine where you created a remote repository, and you have been synchronizing, Tom and Jerry have been synchronizing their work with the remote repository. That's what they have been doing. They keep on doing push and pull, and all developer would have the latest code within their laptop, the local repository. So how did we set up the remote repository? We created an AWS machine, we created a Git user, and in there we created a repository and we called it the remote repository. So instead of doing that myself and managing the remote repository myself, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I got disconnected. So, right. So what I'm trying to explain here is that instead of doing that, instead of creating your own remote repository, that is what we did. We create our own repository. I'm going to create a remote repository from a service provider, not me, some company who create the repositories for you. GitHub is such a company. GitHub creates repositories. You can create a repository by logging into GitHub website, and they will give you the URL. In your case, previously you generated the URL yourself. It had a format, the username @ then the IP address of the machine, colon, the repository name. So like that we saw some URL, right? So if you go to the github.com website and you create yourself an account, you can register on their website with a username, password, and etc. Then you log into github.com website. They will give you this option. You can create a repository. You can click a button and create a repository, and they will give you the URL of that repository. You would get the repository URL. Then Tom can configure that URL inside their laptops. Tom and Jerry can add the GitHub URL as the origin in their laptops. Previously, they points to your own AWS machine, right? We created our own GitHub repository in our AWS machine. That is where it has a URL that you have already seen. This is where currently Tom is doing the push and pull operation. What I am going to do now is I'm going to create a repository inside the remote GitHub, and then I would configure Tom's laptop and Jerry's laptop to use this new URL. The new URL you will get from GitHub would be used by Tom. So from now, Tom and Jerry will use GitHub instead of your own server. And GitHub come along with lots of features also. That is why we are going to use GitHub. It is nothing but, for the developer, it doesn't matter. I mean, they just change the URL, that's it. For them, that is the only concern. They will get a new URL, the GitHub URL. So existing URL they will remove from their laptops, and they will add the new URL in their laptops. And from now, they would start pushing to GitHub instead of any uh, instead of the old URL. So let us create this new repository inside GitHub. So first of all, you should register at github.com website, get yourself a username and password, log in with that username and password, and then you would be able to create a repository inside GitHub. And that one I will use as the remote repository, not me. Both Tom and Jerry will use that one as the remote repository. So let's take a look. Go to the website github.com. Right now I am already logged in. So if you are not logged in, and if you go to the github.com website, you would find a registration form, a sign up form. All you need to do is just provide your email ID here and click on sign up, and you would receive an email, and you will click on the link to provide the username and password, log into GitHub, and that's it. So once you got access to GitHub, you will log in by clicking the sign in button over here. So your email ID is the username, password, whatever password you register with. And once you signed in, you will see the option to create a new repository. On the left side, you can see the list of repositories. So I'm going to create a repository myself for Tom's project, for the project that Tom and Jerry are working on. I'm creating a repository which I will use as the remote repository. So click on new button, and then you specify some name for the repository. Assume retail project. Project already exists. So retail project new, or maybe retail project March 12. So assume this is the repository name that I am creating in GitHub, and it can be a public or private repository. In for the company purpose, you should always create the private repository. In our case, it's fine. It can be public repository. Public repository means people cannot push to your repository, but they can pull from your repository. They can download the code from your repository, and I don't care, right? Because this is a sample project. If somebody want to download, it's okay. uh, for private repository, there are restrictions. That's why I am doing this, right? If you create private repository, there is a limit how many you can create. In your case, you can go with private. It's fine. So that's all. Just click on create. All you need to do is just mention the name of the repository, and then click this button, create repository. That's all. The remote repository, or the repository, is created, and this is the URL. From now, I want Tom and Jerry to use this URL for the push and pull. Okay. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to log into Tom's laptop, and inside Tom's laptop, I'm going to use, I'm going to configure this URL as the origin. All right. So let me do that. Let me log into Tom's laptop. Okay. So let me go to Tom's laptop, and similarly, let me log into Jerry's laptop. On both Tom and Jerry's laptops, I want to change the remote repository URL to the new project. So this is Jerry's laptop, and currently it is the old URL, right? Your own remote repository that you created in the first class. So git remote get URL origin. I think this is the, yeah, this is the command developers can execute to see their current origin. This is the current origin. Remember, this is the internal, you created your own remote repository. Currently, this is the origin. I'm going to delete this origin and I'm going to add the new origin. The command is git remote rm origin. Then what happens is this origin will get deleted. Now I'm going to add the new origin. The command is git remote add origin. Then you specify the URL, whatever you have got from GitHub. This is the URL you have got from GitHub. Just put that URL as the new origin. So I did this in Jerry's laptop, and let me do the same thing on Tom's laptop as well. Tom will also go to his working directory, remove the origin, add the new origin. It is as simple as that. It is as simple as that. If inside your company decided to use a new remote repository, it need to ask all the developer to run these two commands, and they are done. Now they can start pushing and pulling from the remote repository. And let me ask you this question: in Tom's laptop, there are too many commits, 10 or 15 commits are there in Tom's laptop. Agree with me? There are many commits currently in Tom's laptop, but how about the remote repository? How about GitHub? There are no commits, right? It's a fresh repository that you created. It has 0 commits. But what will happen when Tom will run the push command? Let me check which branch Tom is working on. Tom is currently working on Paytm. Let me check out to master branch. And there are a number of commits available on Tom's laptop. Maybe Tom can keep making, there is no change in Tom's work, right? He will keep doing the same things. Okay, none yet. So there are a number of commits in Tom's laptop, and first time Tom does this command, Tom is pushing to the new remote repository. All 20 commits of Tom will be copied to the remote repository. Right? So currently the remote repository has 0 commits, and the push operation will copy the difference. The difference is 20 right now. So all 20 commits get copied to the remote repository. So you don't have to worry about doing any initial configurations. All right. It all happens automatically. And remember, if Tom wants to push, Tom should authenticate, right? Right now, if I run this command, the command will fail. Right? It is giving me the error, permission denied. Why? Because Tom public key should be present in the GitHub repository. Tom already have created a private public key pair. We will use the same key pairs. But the public key of Tom and public key of Jerry must be present in the remote GitHub. Then only Tom and Jerry can push to GitHub, right? So that is what I am doing. Remember, in both Tom's and Jerry's laptop, you created a private key and public key. This is the public key, ID rsapub. This is Jerry's public key, and this is Tom's public key. Both public keys I am going to save inside GitHub. Let me do that. Go to your GitHub account, and on the right side top over here, you have this option called settings. Go to settings, click on SSH and GPG keys on the left side. Then it will provide you this option to specify the public key. So I'm going to specify Tom's public key here. I will paste a Tom's public key. And I'm going to paste Jerry's public key. So both Tom's key and Jerry's key I have added into my GitHub account. Now Tom can push. Tom will not get any permission error. Now you go back to the project that you just created, the retail project March 12. Go to the retail project March 12, and currently it has no content. Now Tom is going to do the push command. Let's see. Tom from his laptop, he is going to execute the push command. Remember, this is the first push. Currently, the remote repository is empty, 0 commits. Every commits of Tom will be copied to the remote repository. Tom has to run the command from his project folder. So every commits get copied from Tom's local repository to the new remote repository, the GitHub repository. Now you go to the GitHub URL, refresh this page, and now you can see the code here. You can see there are total 7 commits. Oh, only 7. Fine. All the commits you can see. You click here, you can see, Tom run the command git log, right? And then Tom can see all the commit history. This is how in GitHub you can see the same commit histories, right? This is nothing but the git log command output of Tom. That you can see here also in the browser. You can see the code, you can see the SA frontend folder, you can see the SRC folder, and then you can see all the code and components. You can see the Docker file. So you can see the entire project inside a graphical browser. And it has many other features that we will see while we learn Jenkins. So right now, from now, Tom and Jerry will be, whenever Tom and Jerry run the push or pull command, remember, they would be pushing and pulling from the GitHub. So GitHub is the new remote repository. We replace the old remote repository with GitHub. Makes sense? So Jenkins can now get the code from GitHub. All right. Whenever you are going to ask Jenkins to build this project. So you can tell Jenkins that, first of all, get the project from this GitHub repository and go to the SA frontend folder, build SA frontend, dockerize SA frontend, then go to the SA logic folder, dockerize SA logic, go to the SA web app folder, build and dockerize SA web app, then push all the Docker images to hub.docker.com, then use the Docker run command or something to pull these images and deploy your containers, or maybe Docker run, or you can use Kubernetes also. So you can specify those instructions inside Jenkins, and initially the code will be taken from GitHub. Jenkins would take the code from GitHub. So let's take a look. I'm going to create the first job in Jenkins. So I will take 10 minutes more, I hope, right? Not more than 10 minutes. So I'm going to create a job in Jenkins. So the current status is the code is available on GitHub. I want Jenkins to pull the code from GitHub and deploy it, do everything whatever is necessary. So if Jenkins want to do these things, Jenkins want to run the npm command to build the JavaScript project. Jenkins want to run the maven command, pip command, docker command to create docker image and push docker images to a docker hub. So all these things must be installed in Jenkins first. And that is exactly what I am going to do first. I'm going to install Docker in the Jenkins server. I'm also going to install npm, maven, python pip, or whatever I need to run this or build these projects. I have 3 projects: SA frontend, SA logic, and SA web app, and I need these many tools to build them. So first of all, I must install them all on my Jenkins server, and let me do that. Let me log into the Jenkins server and install everything. So log into your Jenkins server. This is the Jenkins server. First of all, let me install Docker, right? You already know the instructions to install Docker in Ubuntu. So I will just run all the commands one by one. I can get those commands from the Docker documentation. Search in Google Docker install Ubuntu, and you will get all the commands. Just execute all the commands one by one. Installing Docker. So Docker got installed. Docker is getting installed. Then after installing Docker, now you want to install the build tools, right? What are they? Maven, npm, python pip. So let me do that. apt get installed, maven, npm, python 3 pip, that is the package name, right? So I'm going to install all the packages that I need. So Jenkins server must have all these things, right? Otherwise it won't work in the right way. Let us wait 1 second. All right, so it got installed. So now Jenkins can start doing its job. And there is one more thing. Jenkins want to pull the code from GitHub. Jenkins need to authenticate, right? Jenkins want to connect to GitHub and pull the code. So Jenkins also should do the same thing. Jenkins should generate a private public key pair. Public key should be present in the GitHub. So that's what I'm doing. What I will do is on the Jenkins server, first of all, let me switch myself to Jenkins user. Yes, you should do this. Jenkins run under a different Linux user. The Linux username is Jenkins. Whatever operations your Jenkins server will do, it is the Jenkins user who is performing those operations. So it is the Jenkins user, technically, it is the Jenkins user on the Jenkins server who will connect to GitHub and pull the code. So the private public key pair has to be created under that user, Jenkins user. Don't forget this, right? You Jenkins server run under the ownership of a Linux user with name Jenkins. The username is Jenkins itself. And it is under this user your Jenkins is running. Jenkins software is running. And while Jenkins is running, Jenkins want to pull the code from GitHub. Technically, at the end, at a low level, it is this Jenkins Linux user who is going to pull the code from GitHub. So that is why I'm going to generate the key pair under that user. This is the private key and this is the public key. The public key I want to copy into my GitHub account. So I will go to my GitHub account and paste the public key over there. Right, I'm going to paste the public key over there. So you can do it inside the project itself. If you do it from this page, then it is for the entire account, all the project within your account. But let's say only for this retail project you want Jenkins to work on, you can do this. You can come here in the settings page. There's an option called deploy keys, and now you can add your Jenkins key here as the deploy key, giving Jenkins permission to pull from GitHub. And Jenkins don't need to push, right? It only need to pull. So deploy key by default, it will not have permission to push. Jenkins can only pull the code. It cannot push the code to GitHub. All right, so let us do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to Jenkins, and now I want to tell Jenkins that it can connect to GitHub using the private key that I just created, right? Jenkins has just created this private key and public key. This is the private key that you created, and take a look at the content of that private key. This is the private key. What I will do is I will copy this entire private key and I would add this as a credential in Jenkins. So every time Jenkins want to connect to GitHub, it should use this private key. So I'm going to add this key as a credential in Jenkins, and then at the time of pulling the code from GitHub, I will ask Jenkins to use this credential, right? So let me create a job in Jenkins, and with all these things in mind, create a job in Jenkins. Click on new item on the left side, give some name to the job that you are creating. Let's say build and deploy retail project, right? Give it some name, select freestyle as the project type, click on OK button, and inside, under the source code management, this is where I mentioned how to get the code, how to pull the code. So my code is in Git, it's GitHub. So you specify the URL of the GitHub. What is the URL of GitHub? You can get the URL from here. This URL, this is the URL I want to pull the code from. And yes, for Jenkins to connect this URL and download the code, first of all, it should have the credential. So I'm going to create a new credential. It is asking me to select what credential you want to use. So I have not added the credential yet. I'm going to add the credentials. What is the credential? In our case, the private key, right? So click on the add button, select Jenkins as the credential provider. From this drop down, select this option, SSH username with private key. Okay, and give it some name. You can say Git access. Jenkins want to connect to Git access for a retail project. So you give it some ID, and then over here you have this option, enter directly private key. You can paste it here. So select this option, then click on add button, and you copy paste this whole private key here. This whole private key I'm going to copy paste here. So basically what I did is I just created a credential. With the name Git access retail project, something like that, and save this key. And now I created the credential. Now I'm going to tell Jenkins that to connect to this URL, use this credential, select the credentials from the drop down. As soon as you selected it, you can see that error is gone. It is an indication that Jenkins tested login to this GitHub and it seems to be working. We are good. Now under source code management, this is where you tell Jenkins where to pull the code from and what is the credential to use, and rest of the thing it is up to Jenkins. And then you can tell Jenkins from the advanced menu, you can mention that not here, over here, branches to build. You can mention it is the development branch that I want to build. My project contains, assume my project contains development, staging, production, master, Paytm. There are many branches in my project. I want to build the development branch. That is where developer would make the changes, and I want Jenkins to always pull from development and build it. That is what I want my Jenkins to do. So okay guys, it's getting late, right? So we will just stop here. After pulling the code, we will stop here. The remaining thing we will do tomorrow. I will quickly create a development branch from Tom's computer and show you the code, right? So
Tomorrow
I'm
we
going
have a
to
class.
tomorrow you have class. Yes, tomorrow you have class. And tomorrow is Saturday, still you have class. All right, from Tom's laptop, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a new branch called development. Currently, Tom is working on a master branch, and Tom is going to create a new branch called development, because this is the branch he actually want to work on. This is the best practice, right? I told you always developer work inside a development branch, and now Tom is going to push development branch to GitHub, I mean to the origin. Then automatically this branch get created in GitHub. Now if you go to GitHub, if you go to the GitHub URL, if you refresh this page, and you can see now there is a new branch called development. And from now, this is where Tom will be doing, Tom or all the developers, right? Tom, Jerry, or whoever developer who is working, they will be always working on development branch. The default branch for all developer will be development. That is where they will make the commits. That is where they will do the merging. That is where developer changes will come first. And I want Jenkins to take that code and verify it. Currently, Jenkins is simply pulling the code, right? A remaining thing we will do tomorrow. So let me save this. I have written instructions for Jenkins to pull the code from GitHub. So I'm just clicking this button, build now. Then every time I click on build now button for this job, Jenkins will connect to GitHub check out the code from GitHub. So it seems to be success, right? It is success. So go to that job. You can see Basil did this, and this is the Git latest commit on Git, right? It is the development branch that Jenkins is pulling. So look at the console output. We can see the console output. These are different commands Jenkins executed to download the code from GitHub, and it is success. The code is successfully downloaded by Jenkins, and you can see that code in the workspace folder. If you click on the workspace folder, you can actually see the code within the Jenkins dashboard. SA front end, SA logic, SA web app, right? All the code are visible within Jenkins. Jenkins downloaded complete code from GitHub, and now they are visible within the Jenkins dashboard, within the job execution page. So we will discuss the remaining things tomorrow. So tomorrow would be the last class for Jenkins, and we will continue for 2.5 hours. Sorry, because we have to complete it tomorrow. That's why. And we will talk about next week projects. From Monday we have a project starting. All right, so those are the plans. So questions?
By the way, can you please upload this video whenever you get a chance today?
Sure. And all videos are up to date, right? Nothing is pending, I believe.
That's correct.
Basil,